So today we're going to be taking a look at Sniper Elite VR Winter Warrior. Now, I'm very fortunate to be able to have an early look at it. And guys, if you like this type of content, I will continue trying to get early looks at games, and I'm really excited to sort of bring this to you. This isn't a full review of the game, this is sort of my first impressions after playing it for a few hours. There are some things I really like about this, and there are some things that kind of frustrate me and I feel like just need a little bit of work. And my goal is to be as honest with you as possible and tell you whether you want to actually spend your money and buy this game. Now, there are tons of things that I actually really like about this game and tons of reasons why Sniper Elite VR Winter Warrior is a game that you should consider getting. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about those things first, and then I'll talk about some of the things that slightly bothered me. So first of all, just a very quick synopsis of what the game is. Sniper Elite is a series that's been around for quite a while. Essentially, you are a sniper and you have various tools with you to be able to go out and achieve and complete missions. There are a few elements to this. You have your sniper rifle, and we'll get onto the mechanics of that. You have a variety of other weapons that you can use, and essentially you have to go around and complete various missions, which involves assassinating people, creating traps, retrieving intel, that kind of vibe. Now, alongside the main campaign mode, which I think is probably the gem of this game, but alongside that there are some other modes available as well. There's one where you're sort of a last man standing and you have to try and survive as long as possible with waves of enemies coming at you, and there's another one where you have to try and eliminate enemy snipers. I think the real strength of this game isn't those modes, and I'll get onto that later. I think the real strength of this is the campaign, and I think that's probably what the developers have actually spent the most of their time developing, because that is the most polished aspect of this game. Now, this isn't the first Sniper Elite game, and it's not the first Sniper Elite VR game. Now, this is coming from someone who is completely fresh to this series. Now, I have played Sniper Elite before, quite a while back, but I haven't played the Sniper Elite VR. Now, first of all, this game has nailed down sniping in VR. There are tons of games that use sniper rifles and tons of games that do it really well and tons of games that sort of struggle. It's quite a difficult mechanic to incorporate into virtual reality, but Sniper Elite actually nails it, which is ideal because it is a sniper game. Essentially, it feels like you're actually looking down a scope as opposed to just being shown a scope image in front of you. And with that, there's also a focus mode that allows you to zoom in a way that actually looks comfortable instead of it just sort of being a bit janky in front of your face. One of the super cool things is when you hit someone, you go into like this sort of matrixy bullet mode X-ray replay where you fly through the sky and you see an X-ray shot of the person that you've just shot being eliminated. It's a little bit dark when you think about it in that regard. Now, this is something that I think that's been around in the Sniper Elite games for quite a while, but in VR it works really well. If you haven't got your VR legs, I don't know what it might be like suddenly being launched across a map at like high speed towards a person that you've just shot. But it feels alright. I didn't notice any sort of feeling a bit jarring by that. And then you basically just sort of stood a foot away from the person as you see the X-ray of them and their bones crumbling from the bullet you just fired at them. But honestly, it's a pretty cool mechanic. It's something that you can switch off if you find it uncomfortable, and that's another good thing, is that they do have some accessibility settings. You can play this game sat down and stood up as well, which is also pretty nice. Another thing I think is quite good is that the missions actually feel like decent missions. It doesn't feel that much like a VR tech demo, and I think we are getting away from that in a lot of VR games now. It feels like you're genuinely playing a good game. Now, one thing that is really good about this game is that its price tag is pretty low. Now, because of that, I probably will excuse a lot of the things later down the line which I'll talk about in this video, because some of the things makes it feel like that is the right price tag. Now, I do really like the mission designs. I like the fact that you're sort of going around. There's a high emphasis on stealth, but if you feel confident enough to just take people on, you're more than welcome to do that too. I haven't played every single mission. I think I've played the first 3 missions, and from that experience, if I accidentally got spotted or decided to sort of go in and start shooting, as long as I actually got through all the people that were coming at me, that wasn't an issue, and I ended up being able to continue on in the game perfectly fine. So if you're sort of not really into stealth games, you can sort of get away with not being like that in most cases. The idea of the game, I think, is to try and remain stealthy. I mean, that's sort of kind of the point of being a sniper, isn't it? And it's not just sniping as well. I mentioned earlier about how you have a whole arsenal of different things, and you can sort of pick your loadout to a degree. There's not tons of options for guns and stuff like that, but being able to like sort of quickly switch to your secondary, you can quickly pull out firearms, and you've got tons of spots around you to have, I think, 4 sidearms, and then you also have 2 shoulders, so you have your rifle on one side and then your machine gun or shotgun on the other. And to be able to just quickly switch onto a machine gun and start mowing people down if things hit the hay, that's a pretty good idea. That sort of makes the game a lot more dynamic in the sense of if things go wrong, the mission isn't just over. It's that you can get your way out of this and you can sort of get past that. Now, how this game looks, so I'm playing on the Quest 3 and it looks really good. Now, the textures on the game are really sharp. It isn't the best looking game that I've seen on the Quest. Like, a lot of things are quite still polyagonal and stuff like that in some areas, but the textures are really clear and really sharp. Everything does look like you're playing on a standalone headset as opposed to playing like console gaming, but considering it, it looks really good. And generally, I think my thing with this game is that it does just feel quite fun. I feel like there is some replayability because of the sort of fun mechanics of the game. The fact that you can complete a mission in stealth and then you can go back and you can sort of just charge through and see how many people you can get with your machine gun as well. There are varying difficulties as well, so if you find it too easy, you can up the difficulty and create more of a challenge for yourself, or if you're finding it too difficult, you can sort of bring that back a bit. And another thing for sort of trophy hunters out there is that you can actually go around and find collectibles in every single mission. So if you're the type of person who likes to explore, there isn't much in the sense of loot. You can go around and pick up ammo and stuff like that, but in terms of actual loot, there are a few collectibles you can go around and pick up. Now, I don't know whether you can actually interact with these. I think sort of they're just sort of things of you've picked this many of these things from that particular map, so you've found this many letters in this place and you found this many statues that you've destroyed in this place, and you can do that in sort of every single mission. Now, I don't think when you get a letter you can actually read it, but I might be wrong, so don't citate me on that. Now, I think I've given you a good idea of what the game feels like, and honestly, it is a lot of fun. I mentioned earlier that I think the sort of best and most polished version of this game is the sort of campaign mode, because when I went on to the other modes, I felt like a lot of issues started glaring up quite a bit. So in the sort of like wave mode and the sniper hunting mode, I noticed a few things sort of pop up. So firstly, in the sort of wave mode, you're in this really dark cemetery. Now, I think that particular mode was just way too dark. I know they're trying to sort of make it feel like it's a dark cemetery, but I just found it just seemed a little bit too dark, especially when you went onto the X-rays, because then for some reason when you went onto those sort of X-ray bullet time shots, they were also really dark. Now, this is a bug I know they're aware of because I reached out to them with some of my issues and they sort of gave me some feedback whether there's things that they're planning on fixing in an early update. Now, on these wave modes, as time goes on, it tends to sort of, you run out of ammo and stuff like that, and you do get like sort of ammo drops and stuff happen occasionally, but the main way of you sort of replenishing your supplies is by going around to the people that you've managed to eliminate and taking their ammo. The problem is that I found when there was sort of a lot of stuff in a particular area, like a lot of different ammo boxes or a lot of guns, it was almost impossible to pick them up. You can go right up to them and sort of bend over and crouch down, use the crouch button and pick up a gun with your hand, but there is a mechanic, and that works well in the campaign, which is you sort of point your hand in a direction towards an ammo box, similar to in the game Population 1, and you sort of just do a grip motion and then pull it towards you and then you get the ammo. And that works in most of the times I used it in the campaign mode. Pretty much, I didn't even notice it being an issue in the campaign mode. But as soon as there was lots of things, it just wouldn't pick up. And I'd be stood there for ages being like, come on, I need ammo, trying to pick it up. And then I'd get loads of people just suddenly spawn near me and start killing me. So that was very frustrating, I'll be honest. Now, there were a bunch of other cool little traps you could do, like trip mines and stuff like that, which were really good and worked particularly well, to be honest. You can also shoot people's grenades if they've got grenades on them, and that works really nicely. The guns that you have, they're really good and they actually feel quite nice to use. One thing I do like is you pick your preferred hand. So in a lot of sort of shooting games, if I reached over my shoulder with my left hand and I pulled out my gun, my trigger hand would be the one that's holding the gun. And I'm right-handed, so if I reach over my right to get my sniper rifle, that's fine. But then as soon as I go to get my machine gun from the other side, in a lot of games I'd have to reach over and grab with my right hand so that I had the trigger in the right place. But this game sort of does that for you. So if you grab your left hand, you're actually grabbing where you would be gripping with your left hand. So it just sort of makes it a little bit more seamless, and you're not sort of having to sort of juggle your guns around in a really annoying way. Now, one thing that sort of annoyed me a little bit, it didn't annoy me, it just sort of felt like, oh, they missed a trick, is with two particular types of guns. So if you have a revolver or if you have a shotgun, The way you reload them, and the reloading mechanics in a lot of the guns are actually really nice and easy to use. These ones you have to grab the front of the gun and pull it down, so you can then tip out the old bullets. So you have to do a tipping motion. You can put in your new bullets, but the problem is that because you're using your hand to sort of tip the bullets out, the sort of thought process in my mind, this might just be me, is that you want to be able to sort of flick your wrist to be able to pull the shotgun back up, or flick your wrist to be able to get the revolver back up. But you can't do that. You have to then go and grab the area and then put it back, and it just adds an extra step that just makes the gun just not really that fun to use. So it was just a little bit of a mistrick there. It's not a bad thing per se, but it's just like, it just feels like it was sort of not a big focus, which I get because it's a sniper game, but if you're going to put the guns in, make them really good, you know. Now, other than that, I really liked the wave mode, and I think the wave mode worked really well. I just didn't like the map, and I didn't like the fact that some of the things weren't working. If they had another map that was brighter and everything sort of worked a little bit smoother, that would be a really fun mode that I'd probably play quite a lot. Now, how do I summarize this game? So I think this game is fantastic. I think the ideas are great. I think the mechanics are really well thought out, and this game is planned really well. But I just think some of the areas of execution just need a bit more polish. I don't think the game is quite at a level where it would be worth a AAA launch. Now, the benefit of this game is that it isn't a AAA game, and it's not a AAA price tag. So this game is only $10.99 in the UK on the Meta Store, so £10.99, and I think it's $14.99 in the US. That is a cheap game, and actually, for the amount of fun this game is and for how good those mechanics are, that is actually well worth it compared to some of the other stuff that you get on the store. A lot of these things that are issues will be fixed with updates, and I'm sure they'll bring out extra things, maybe even extra maps and stuff like that. So these are things that can be changed. I just can't guarantee it for you because I'm not on the development team. Now, I did reach out to Rebellion about some of these things, and they did say that a lot of them they were working on, and that they were working on fixing a lot of those issues in post-launch updates, which is fine. And then, to be fair, if they were pushing for a launch date and they just were a bit understaffed in this particular department, then I can see why that might have happened. But it does feel like this game just isn't quite perfected, and that some of these things do need a little bit of updating. And I think that is one of the things with VR games, I think, across the entire VR industry, is that some of these games, when they get launched, they do take a little bit of time for people to jump in and give feedback for the games to actually be perfected. There's not a lot of games that come out and it's like 100% from day dot. But guys, if you like gun games, you like sniper games especially, this game is something that is really fun and is something that I think is probably something you should experience and should buy. I think for the price tag, especially the launch prices that I've seen, I think it is 100% worth it if you're really into these games, but you just need to be aware that it isn't a fully polished experience, and it might take a little bit of time for those things to be sorted. But guys, this is one of the first times I've sort of done a game review for VR. I've done a lot of stuff in the tech side of VR. It's the first time I've done a dedicated impressions of a particular game. So if you guys would like to see more of these type of videos, I'd be more than happy to keep making them. So let me know by liking the video and commenting down below. And guys, I will see you in the next one.